Hey y'all, so this will be a response video to a couple of comments on the comment section under the video Meet the Brooklyn Subway Shooter and Why Millennials Won't Afford to Retire. And the person, I'll screenshot it and you'll see the dialogue. I'm gonna break down a lot of the points this person has made. It's a lot and I don't want to write a thesis of a response, so I'll just turn it into a video. We'll take it point by point and we'll get it started. So this is from CC's Adventure. Damn, I honestly believe that the only reason the elites are able to remain in power and hustle people out of their resources is because women condone men being poor and unproductive. I do not believe that capitalism is tied to men being unproductive and women allowing that. Simply for the fact that regardless if you're a man or a woman in this capitalist system, if you're not producing, you end up sleeping under a bridge. And just because we need our basic needs met, it's part of our human basic rights. We don't want to live under a bridge, especially if we have a choice not to live under a bridge. And because of capitalism and our capitalist realism, where it's like, go to school, get a good job, make it up the social economic ladder, or hustle mentality, get it from the mud, scam, rob, do what you got to do, live the highlight. You know, the best images are on Instagram. The best snapshots of our lives are curated best self image, matches directly with the intent of capitalism. So I don't believe men are okay with being broke, especially since we live, especially in this era, the hot girl era, where let's take it from a Black perspective. You know, sweetie, broke boys don't deserve no pussy. I know that's right. Every girl is saying that. We don't fuck no broke nigga. We don't want to deal with no broke niggas. If he got the money, I'm gonna fuck on him and take his money. Like, that is the motto, right? Especially since we live in a pro-capitalist state, especially in the United States. Money is everything. Let's be real. Money is the basis of everything that we do. Whether we're going somewhere to spend money, we're coming back from somewhere to spend money, whether it's our mating decisions, we are going to partner up with people who are going to lessen the burden of economic stress. I mean, like, what, 50% of marriages end up in divorce, and the number one topic, number one issue is money issue. So a lot of our existence is tied to our capital and trying to get more of capital. Everything we do is transactional. So in this capitalistic system, in this patriarchal system, there is no leeway for men not to be productive. Even if it is illegal, even if they are selling dope, even if they are robbing, if they are able to produce some type of economic benefit, most people will turn a blind eye because cash is king. So I do not believe that men are just, the overwhelming majority of men, regardless of class, are okay with being broke. And then on top of that, women are the ones. Also, with your comment, that doesn't align with the stats of death due to despair. A lot of men in particular are killing themselves. There's a higher rate of suicide because they are not able to keep up economically. Men's ego is tied to how much pussy they can get as well as how much they can produce. Oftentimes we'll say a gun is a representation of a man's dick. You know, how much money he has is representative of who he is as a man and his value, that big dick energy. He's a provider, he's a protector, he's a producer, he's a problem solver. All of that identity of what it means to be a man, a functional man, a good man, a top tier man, a high value man, is all tied to his economic contribution. Most men adhere to that standard, not being a leech on women or just being a quote unquote bum. Championing the message, especially in this climate, late stage capitalism coincides with it. But nonetheless, you're hearing a lot more women talk about, I want to know how much money you can do for me, right? 6 figures, that's my type. type of energy. There is no, oh, I want to know what you got going on soulfully. I want to know your spiritual development. I want to know your emotional intelligence. That's not really the wave right now. Socialism is not really it right now. Communism isn't really it right now. So I have to disagree that in this capitalistic system, it is not supporting men being broke. And I don't see too many women supporting men being broke. The only women I can see who circumvent their partner, in this case, a heterosexual couple, the only time I see women who try to undercut their man's ability to gain money is if she's insecure that if he makes a certain level of money, if he's in a certain social status, that he will either leave her for the next best thing. Usually when women try to undercut their man financially, it's an insecure thing versus, ooh, I just want to sleep on broke dick. Ooh, I just want to be with a bum ass dude. Ooh, I just want to live under a bridge. That's not really it. How are the rich getting richer and you got smoke for women and don't want to be with you, oppressive, regressive, emotionally unstable, unavailable, poor ass? I think she's saying about a particular type of man, especially the manosphere, the nationalist, the black nationalist type, who are always talking about the white man this and black women need to do that. And they tend to be the type who are living in their mother's basement, who have no real accomplishments, and all they do is bitter and bicker and argue and scream profanities at the camera. Reference Prophet of Doom, who is also the Brooklyn subway shooter. So that is a point. But I also will say that in this capitalistic system, there is something called an army of labor reserve, which basically means that in a capitalist system, there will always be a bottom class. The bottom class is used for, let's say, the Amazon strike, right? These reserve army of labor would be people who are either jumping from gig job to gig job. They don't really have papers. They might be migrant workers. They might be people with felonies. There are people who society just dismissed. So society doesn't see that they exist. Usually working and making money underneath the table, probably doesn't have a paper trail, hasn't been in the work field for a couple of years. Those are the type of people, and there's a lot more of those people than you think exist in this capitalist system. So capitalism always has that group of people just on the fly, just on the curve. So when, let's say, people who do fit into the system, who are having to work within the capitalist structure, whether that means you're doing a W-2 or W-4 form or I-9 form or whatever it is, to any capacity, whether you're a professional managerial class, whether you are Starbucks barista, whatever the case may be, you fit into the system. Capitalism always uses those lesser than, those people who have maybe shady records or just wasn't able to fit in the capitalist system, as a way to keep those in the capitalist system, whether it's the barista, whether it's the managerial, in place, because they know that they could always replace them with others who are desperate and in need of some type of stability, and use that as a way to pin two groups against each other. But in regards to these men who are very manosphere, very black nationalist, very misogynistic, they tend to have that element where they just couldn't make it into societal structures, whether that means they were in and out of mental hospitals, they have felonies, they've been in and out of jail, they have a drug record, whatever the case may be. A lot of them tend to have on that energy of, I hate women and I hate white supremacy, I hate patriarchy. And two out of three things I do agree with. I don't like white supremacy and I don't like patriarchy. But the whole misogyny thing, they're on their own with that. And truth be told, a lot of these men complain about the system because they don't fit into the system. The system is not benefiting them, which is a true claim. But trust and believe me, the same men who are like, white supremacy is evil, these black women and their weaves, and if they would just listen to us black men, if tomorrow they were given a high-figured position, they would quit their bitching and play their role. it's only because the system does not serve them that they are this mad and this loud. But soon as they get a little bit of a fanfare, a cult following, some money, you really start seeing they ass. They really start showing they ass, and they start speaking real capitalist. They start getting real chummy and supporting the system, whether they become black MAGA hats or they become black capitalists. All of a sudden the system ain't bad. There's something wrong with you because they on a come up. So also be mindful of that aspect. Get the money because cash is king in this society and in this world. That is very true. Regardless of the country, regardless of the system, cash is king still to this day. And if I'm going to put on my tingling tin hat, this is why they want everybody to go crypto. They want people to go virtual with their money payments. They want you to do PayPal and Cash App and Venmo because you can trace that. There's a paper trail, whereas cash has no paper trail. Whoever gives you the money, there's no track record of that. And however you spend the money, there's no track record of that because cash is king. Peep that. That's why a lot of people, especially if y'all were making money on the internet and having a little side business, when Joe Biden came up with those new tax and the way that he was doing the IRS policies, now if you're making over $600 via like Venmo payments or PayPal payments or Cash App payments, now you got to pay taxes on that shit. If you receive or are making over $600 a year via virtual transaction, via, like I said, the Cash App, the Venmos, the PayPals, or whatever. Now the way that these tax laws are set up by Jim Crow, Blue Dog, Dixiecrat, Biden, now you got to report on that. Now you got to pay taxes on that. When it's cash, no one knows nothing about nothing because that's nobody's business, if you catch my drift. But when cash is king, who knows what about who? Nada, because there's no paper trail. Peep that. Anywho, no money means being cut off from healthy food, good health care, and other resources. You need to live a fulfilling life as a human being. That's very true. And that's what capitalism uses. Like I said, most people, like, let's be real dead ass honest. We in a dead ass space. We could be dead ass honest, right? Most people work a job they don't give not nan fucks about. Period. You do this job because it allows you to pay your bills because you don't want to be homeless. Most people are held hostage to their jobs. Everything you do revolves around your job, where you live, how long it takes you to go and come from, how many vacation days you could take, if you even have vacation days. Even your weekends is based on, damn, what do I got to do Monday morning for work? Everything you do revolves around work. A lot of people are pushing off having families for work. Work is very, very heavily focused in this capitalistic system because the capitalists, the ones who own the means of production, want more productivity out of their employees so they can make more profits, because what's the point of having a yacht when you can have a super yacht? Basic as that. So when it comes to basic needs, America, one of the richest countries in the world, does not have universal health care, whereas other nations do. Even so-called third world underdeveloped nations, some do actually have universal health care. Why don't you think this capitalist system gives us universal health care? Because if we had universal health care, whether it's that hick in the Appalachians to the Fortune 500 CEO, if everybody had fucking health care, would we be tied to these bummy ass jobs? Would we be able to really pursue our passions or take on any job, even if it pays less, but it's more fulfilling to our psyche and our emotional well-being, if we had universal health care? A lot of these corporate jobs offer benefits such as healthcare because we do not have universal healthcare. And depending on who you are and what's going on with your personal life, you may need that healthcare. You might be healthy, but you might be married to someone who has a chronic illness. You might be healthy now, but in 10, 15 years, something happens within your life and now you're taking medications or your body doesn't work and function like it used to. So you need that health benefit. You need those benefits. And that's another way that capitalism keeps us hostage, Because if we had options, if we had health care, if we had a universal basic income, meaning each month the government just cuts you a check just cuz to do whatever the fuck you want to do with that, is just universal basic income. Here you go, just like a stimmy during the pandemic. You get a stimmy every month just for the fuck of it. Do you think we would be taking on these dingy, bummy, disgraceful, inhumane, classless, deplorable jobs if we had options? And this is why the capitalist class does not want us to have these basic human rights, because they wouldn't be able to keep their boot on our necks. Same thing with the college. If you knew you could get a good job, a good paying job with benefits, without that college experience, without spending that money, without wasting that time, without getting a mortgage of a student loan debt on your back, would you go to college? Even if you had the interest for it. But if you knew guaranteed you're going to be making high six figures out of high school, would you go to college? No, most people would not, because most Americans don't have a college degree. Whether it's the lack of finances or the lack of interest, regardless to what, most Americans don't have a college degree. And most Americans who do go to college will tell you, I went to college for a better economic opportunity. I went to college to be able to be a better candidate in the job market. And what Jim Crow Joe Juneteenth posturing ass didn't sell is that the majority of people who have those heavy ass mortgage of a loan student debt are Black women. Black women have more student debt. That's not to say other groups of people don't get student loans, but it's the difference between 10,000, 20,000 for 4 years and 80,000, 150,000 for 4 years. That's the dilemma that Black women are going through. And let's be also clear that college is about who you know, not what you know. Hence why there's so many clubs, fraternities, sororities, and other organizations within colleges and universities that solidify your career and inner circle. This is what the high college fees are all about. Meeting the future leaders and shakers for the capitalist class. It's not a surprise that professional positions are held by Ivy Leagues and other exclusive circles. They all know each other, they hire each other, and they gatekeep positions. So again, if we had options, we wouldn't be so loyal to the capitalist, and we definitely wouldn't be here stuck with student loan debt that we can't even discharge through bankruptcy thanks to President Joe Biden. These are things that I want people on this channel to think about, the construct of the reality that we live in and how oppressive it is to the everyday person. Struggling is hard AF. Don't laugh at me, LOL. Pick me culture is a cause of this. Rich men generally have access to more women. I'm not even going to say pick me culture is the cause of this. It's patriarchy. Men write the laws of society. I mean, it is men who actually said, you know what, I think we should be giving women rights. Like, they are kind of people too, It's patriarchy. So a lot of women become pick-me's because it's like you align with the most accomplished, well-connected, well-funded man, or you have a bunk buddy underneath the bridge. So most women, if they want to survive in a capitalist system, if they want to survive in a patriarchal system, especially in countries where there is a significant wealth gap, which America is one of them too, a lot of women will groom their daughters to be chosen by the quote unquote elite class. Most women will sell a part of their agency, a part of their sexuality, a part of themselves to be safe under the guidance of patriarchy, under the guidance of capitalism. If you ever watched the show The Handmaid's Tale, this is why Serena was loyal to her commander, even though she knew he wasn't shit, even though she knew the commanders and how Gilead was set up to oppress women. She didn't give a fuck until she lost her pinky, until she was affected, until she was personally oppressed by the same system that she built. That's when she hated Gilead and hated the commanders. Until then, she turned a blind eye to the handmaidens getting beat, getting raped, getting disfigured because it wasn't her. Until it's hers, she became discontent with the system that she helped build. And that's pick-meism. Pick me over the other woman because I'll be safe. But until you get your ass beat, until you get cheated on, until you become fourth baby mama, until you get your ass shot up in the foot, then it's like, oh shit, patriarchy is horrible. Oh shit, capitalism is not all what it's cracked up to be. Until it personally affects you.
And truth be all the way told, don't ever trust no bitch like that. A bitch like that will be secretly jealous of you and trying to be you at the same time on some single white female type shit. Bitches like that will set you up because they are threatened by you, they are insecure by you, and they want to knock you down a peg. And the way that they want to knock you down a peg is making you vulnerable and victimized by predatory men. Be very aware of women like that, because them hoes will put your whole life on a detour or in the grave on that frenemy shit.
Then there's a problem. That's pick-meism. You are the exception until you are not the exception. Nicki Minaj is still struggling with swallowing that pill. She's still gagging and crying and doing the most because she thought she was safe. And the rap game that she loved to be the special snowflake, to be the role model, to be the prototype, the same rap game, the same misogyny, the same sexism, the same chauvinism, the same toxic traits that she was so happy to co-sign, and the same toxic traits that's dragging her by her silky baby hairs, and she's still confused. She still don't know how to add up that equation because she really thought she was safe. That's pick-meism. And rich men generally do have access to more women. But as you're seeing, especially with the black nationalists, the MGTOW, the black pill type of guys, just because they have more access to women, especially those who are on the richer side, the well-connected side, that doesn't change the quality of man. This is why you're seeing a lot of these rapid niggas with all the money, with all the groupies, they're still trash. NBA Youngboy, still trash. He might have diamonds, he might be icy, he might be flossy, but he's trash as fuck. No different than Lil Wayne. No different than Cameron or Camry or whatever the fuck Newton, the football player guy. They're all the same prototype, but they're rich. They got diamonds. They got money. They're connected, but they'll beat your ass no different than the nigga in the hood. They'll leave you as the fourth baby mama no different than the nigga in the hood. They will rape you no different than the, because it's the same fucking prototype. And that's what gets a lot of women, especially black women, because we don't have the best role models when it comes to like love, relationships, self-development, and all that good stuff. But you're seeing a lot of these girlies, they got the followers, they got their hair laid, they got the fake eyelashes, the fake titties, the fake ass, and they're going through the same shit as the girly in the hood. Because you could take the girl out the hood, but you can't take the hood out the girl. You can take these toxic ass men out of these toxic ass neighborhoods, but you can't take the toxicity out of these men, especially when they know they ain't shit and they're okay with it. I.e., I'm on demon time, right? They know they ain't shit, but they're okay with it. Why? Because they got access to more women. So if you don't fall in line, they have a fleet of low self-esteem, probably sexually abused, low self-image, insecure exoticals lining up to take the girlie's place. That's why they have a harem of baby mamas. It's literally wash, rinse, repeat. So yeah, men of means, yes, they have more options. But not all men of means are of good quality. They're not of high quality. And I see that around that, again, manosphere sector. What's high quality? What's high value? And a lot of what you describe as high value of high quality is very materialistic, is very vain, is very basic. And then y'all be wondering why a lot of these rich men be shit inside. Just because he's rich does not mean he's a decent man. And it's kind of crazy that a lot of these women be grown as fuck, got kids and shit, and they're still oblivious to that simple, basic fact. But let us proceed. In the early stages of patriarchy, the top man would have all the women and the resources. Not necessarily so. You would have to, whew, when you get your information from the internet. Okay, so you would have to describe what era, what society, and what were the other factors we're discussing when we're talking about this prototype of alpha man gets all the women. Because, like, are we talking about hunter gatherers? Are we talking like the Amazonian people versus like the Khoi people in South America? Like, what are we talking about? And what era? Like, these are very just basic white patriarchy thrown together theories with no real basis. Because in a society where you depend on each other, very quote unquote primitive, it's not gonna work if one man has all the women. And then on top of that, that would cause a lot of friction and a lot of a lack of cohesiveness. And if you are in the wild, because this is usually the image that these pro-blackers and these manosphere men like to portray. If you're in the wild and you're fighting every day to not get your ass bitten by a motherfucking anaconda or get your ass swallowed by a fucking lion, you need all the manpower you can get. And one thing that will make the most thorough man go insane if you out here swiping on pussy. So that's not necessarily the story, and it definitely isn't the story in every scenario, depending again about the tribe, the era that we're talking about, and so on and so forth, that this is the particular social structure. But okay, let's go with alpha man got all the women, which doesn't, probability wise, not close to being real. But let's say that is the case. Does that not make it more important for that alpha man to be thorough as fuck? Because instead of being responsible for one woman, he's responsible for 20. That means that he has to split his resources, his time between 20 women and 20 homes. And that depends on if he only has 20 kids, because he could have multiple kids
with one woman, or the pregnancy leads to multiple, so like twins, quadruplets, and so on and so forth. That's not advantageous for any society, especially a society that is very much survival based. There's nothing that's guaranteed. You have to hunt for your own food. It's very labor intensive. That is not conducive for the overall support, structure, and productivity of a society to just have reckless babies, period. Whether we're talking about the refined modern day society or we're talking about hunter-gatherer society, having reckless kids, one man getting all the women, that will end in tribalism and disaster. Just common sense.
So he's stretching himself thin and then having to be the main provider for them kids. Don't you think that that would put more of a structure and more of a particular standard and requirement for an alpha than just to be a walking dick? Don't you think that it would be more of a responsible and a fiscal responsibility for an alpha to do more than provide dick? Just out of curiosity.
This is how I know this is a manosphere talking point, because I do actually watch documentary and videos on quote unquote primitive society. And even though they are quote unquote primitive society, there are structures, there are laws, there are so many integral parts of that society, no different than modern day society. And the idea that you just bring dick to the table is laughable, because you're saying that tribal women are too dense to realize survival is the name of the game, that offsprings to take on the position and to keep on the culture forward is the name of the game. These men who say that talking point of alpha man gets all the pussy is these men who are ousted out of society. Women are not choosing them. They are the bottom of the barrel. They have nothing to offer but dick. They don't say nothing about building nothing. They don't say nothing about getting from the mud, providing for the community, providing for the tribe. Only thing that they can focus on is their dick, because that's the only thing that they can provide in real relationships. Dick, problems, and perpetual boyhood. And that's what they think a quote unquote primitive society would be focused on. Their bare basic dick. basic human functions because that's all they can afford and contribute to a relationship.
This wouldn't work for him in the long run because the bottom men would want his head and would kill him and not let him stay in power. Ultimately, yes. Ultimately, because men and their ego is a dangerous thing. Ultimately, yes, men would not be okay with all the women being centered around one particular man. But then again, it undervalues and underestimate women, that women are just so weak and so dumb and so dick hungry that they would sign up to be the fourth, fifth, sixth, 17th baby mama. And they wouldn't think like, hey, maybe he's good at these skills, but like, there's no other man in that society who has the same fucking skills. Are you serious? All women are going to be waiting in line to take their turn on the same retired, wrinkly, cum soaked dick, then get her own dick and try to survive this thing called the wild. Really? Really? Is that how that works? Okay. Look at the Chinese history, how these warlords struggle to stay in power. I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not going to look that up, but again, we're talking about the constructs in this particular scenario that you're building. This is a particular time in Chinese history, and we're talking about warlords. That's not a peaceful society. That sounds like what happens in any society that goes through war. So there's chaos, there's shortages, there's not enough resources, things get scarce, there's probably a lot of dead men. That type of society where everything is on the brink of collapse, yes, you may switch the way that you structure yourself, you may switch the way that you choose partners, but that's out of extreme circumstances. That's not every day. If you look at poor countries in the world, the men still have wives, even though they don't have access to clean drinking water, sanitation, or adequate food resources. Usually in those type of circumstances, it's very, very poor. So a lot of times these women don't have education, don't have access and resources. And usually in those toxic ass society, those men brainwash those women. It's giving me heavy Boko Haram type of vibes where women are heavily repressed. It's giving me very much Saudi Arabia vibes where you can be stoned to death. Women lack autonomy. Women are oppressed. Women are heavily under the eye of patriarchy. Men rule the day. In those type of extreme circumstances, it is not suitable for women. Women don't sign up to be abused by men. It's one of those things where I don't control the market. These men are heavily organized, and they probably have some type of weapon mechanism, even if it's like rape, the threat of rape, the threat of violence, that gets these women in order. It's not out of free will and agency. It's literally out of survival and fear. So I wouldn't use that as the model of like, well, in poor countries, women, they sign up to be sister wives. It's usually in those type of circumstances, very, very religious based, very, very patriarchal. And there's a lack of resources and education for those women. That's how that turns out to be that way. When there is more economic growth, more education, more opportunities, those women don't sign up to be married at 12. They go off, they get a better education, they discover themselves, they build their own minds, and so on and so forth. This is why in those heavily patriarchal, heavily religious, and heavily oppressive countries towards women, they like having those women barefoot and pregnant. They like having those women uneducated. They like having those women under the fear of death or some type of violent retribution. That's the only way that they can quote unquote control these women, is literally through the fear of death and violence. Not a good example.
On the flip side, in matriarchal societies like the small tribe in Kenya that ousted out the men because the men were indeed beating them and raping them, what they decided to do was collectivize. They created their own little township of sort, and they support each other. They cook, they clean, they help raise each other's children. When it comes to tourists and they come and visit the area, they'll sell some like beads and other trinkets and whatnot. For the most part, it's very peaceful. And if they have male children, by the time the child reaches 12, they oust that child, that male child, to live with the other men. The men have accepted this arrangement because they understand that this is better for the women, and they also know that they took advantage of those women, so those women started their own communities, and it works. Another matriarchal community is that matriarchal society in China, which escapes me right now, and it is modernized. They keep their culture. These women, they get married, but they are the ones who lead positions within that society, very matriarchal. They don't even have a word for rape because it does not exist. They don't even have a word for domestic violence because it does not exist. These women live in harmony. They raise their children together. They have, little boo things on the side. He comes through at night and then leaves in the morning. Like, they can have relationships in marriage, but like, it's definitely ruled by women, and it's peaceful. It's happy. Even the men are okay with this setup. So don't believe the hype with these manosphere, black pill, black nationalists. Patriarchal societies do not work for women, but matriarchal societies have and continue to do so.
They are continuing to fuck women, get them pregnant, and those children end up dying at the age of 2 from some waterborne illness. Again, like I said in the aforementioned comment, those societies are very chaotic, very stressful, low access to resources, lack of basic necessities, usually very religious, very patriarchal. That's not a society that is equal, a society that values women, a society that is abundant. That's usually a resource stripped society. And there's probably all types of wars and all types of atrocities going on. So it's not that these women are all of a sudden saying, wow, this warlord, oh my God, this gang leader, oh, this corrupt politician, he's just making me so juicy. Oh, my blood, it's just flowing. It's literally out of survival. It's literally like, I'll be the 6th sister wife because it's that or death, and I don't want to die. That's usually how that goes. A next blurb from Cece. Damn, it's tough for millennials. However, it is still not too late. I believe we can all work together to undo these policies, but millennials gotta get their minds in correct headspace. I believe so too. I mean, you can't cry and whine and doomer mentality your way out of climate change. You're not going to doomer your way out of these corporate politicians, these corrupt politicians. Like, you're not going to circle jerk about how life sucks and how, it's the end of the earth. We might as well just like jerk off to, I don't know, Reddit post and call it a day. That's not going to help. So like, we do need to get our headspace together. They need to be coming up with solutions and executing them. There are spaces like that. There are different groups who either are changing their cities' infrastructure in regards to how to make things more resource rich, or reducing, recycling certain resources, or even reducing their carbon footprint. So there are those groups that exist. What tends to be the issue is that these senile, archaic, mummified politicians who've been senator of blah, blah, blah for 25 years, or congresswoman blah, blah, blah for 50 years. They don't want to let go of their position because they're power hungry, they're corrupt, and they're backed by these corporates who put millions of dollars into their campaign, as well as they refuse to shift their brains. Because at the end of the day, Joe Biden's probably going to die before climate change really eat his ass. Nancy Pelosi's probably going to die before climate change really fucks up her millions. Again, these people are so parasitic and so deranged that they're too dense to understand that climate change will affect their children too. But they're so narcissistic, they don't even give a damn about the future of their kids and their because if they did, they would be putting real policies in to curb the dangerous and catastrophic nature that climate change will be ramping up in the next 10 years. Ironically, the next 10 years, Social Security is supposed to be bankrupt. So while you're being burned on the West and being drained and drowned on the East, you won't even have Social Security to, I don't know, help you buy 2 cans of beans at the grocery store. If there'll still be a supply chain going on in the middle of climate catastrophe, I don't know. We see climate catastrophe going on now, not to the point that it will be next coming years, but you see how in shambles it is today. You still see at this grocery stores certain shelves that are still empty or sparsely stocked. Now imagine when shit really hits the fan, what you gonna find? So these people are more concerned about their reputation. They're more concerned about how history will view them. They're more concerned about their reputation than they are about the citizens, and it shows. Millions of dollars for Ukraine, child tax credit, student loan cancellation, inflation in the gas pump, inflation in the grocery store, a lack of affordable housing. So we already know where they stand. So it takes us the millennials, us the Gen Zers, and even the Gen Xers who are going to live this reality of climate catastrophe. It is up to us to make those changes. Because if we wait on Joe Biden, that motherfucker's going to drop dead before he do anything different. And he know that. And he don't give a damn, just like Hunter Biden's crack-headed ass, corrupt ass. They don't give a damn. They goody. It's us who will be facing the hardships. They don't care. Millennials need to start spending different and figuring out ways to get the power back in their hands. Millennials are doing that. There has been a significant percentage of millennials and just new car buyers buying electric. That's a millennial thing, pushing for green spaces, pushing for cleaner ways to go about the infrastructure, whether it's e-bikes, whether it's bicycling or those scooters or whatever the case may be, not relying on fossil fuels and things of that nature. They exist. What I would suggest is find the chapters that are local to you, find the clubs that are local to you, find the council that is closer to you and join those particular initiatives. That's what I would suggest. Do you think that pick-meism is strong in the Gen Y community? We millennials would be considered Y. I think you meant to say Gen Z, the generation after. I feel like pick-meism is a thing that I feel like my if I even knew she existed, if I even knew her, because I never met her, would be something like my great 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 grandmother was talking about. Like patriarchy has been here for
millennia.
I'm pretty sure in ancient Egyptian days, women were talking about, look at that pick-me ass. I'm pretty sure pick-meism has existed since the introduction of patriarchy. Do I think Gen Z is more in line to be pick-me's? I think there are pick-me's in a different way. They're not pick-me's in a sense of like, choose me, love me, I can cook, I can clean, I could be your doormat. I don't think they're pick-me's in that traditional sense.
The new age girlies are not trying to play baby boy. They do not want to be out here talking about, Jody, why won't you this, then the third? But they'll do it for a rich nigga, which is pick-meism of another tribe. It's the same shit. You're just not going to be a pick-me for a broke nigga, but you're going to be a pick-me regardless. And like I said, if you're not checking into the character, if you're not seeing what this particular man is about, you're going to end up with the same bum-ass dude, but he got diamonds. He's still going to mistreat you. He's still going to do you dirty. You still going to be crying and whining on some Mary J. Blige ain't going to cry shit. But somehow you feel special because you got your titties and your ass did, and you fucking on a nigga who abuses you in a Rolls Royce versus a Toyota. Pick me of another name, but nonetheless, still a fucking pick me.
But they're pick me's in the sense of like being capitalist slurs, in the sense of like, I got my titties and my ass done. You know, I don't cook, I don't clean, but I'll tell you how I got this ring. It's like, I will be a capitalist whore if you give me all my material and vanity needs. If you can meet that, then yeah, why not? I think they're pick-me's in another way. They're not broke pick-me's. They might be rich pick-me's. They might be pick-me's with bigger asses and titties, but pick-me's nonetheless, because everything that they do is for the male gaze. So how is that any better than the traditional pick-me? What anti-pick-me would be is I live my life in accordance to what the fuck I want to, how the fuck I view myself, my own agency. I do what I want when I want, how I want to, unapologetically. And if I'm gonna get my titties done, it's gonna be for me, not for you. Pick-meism by another name. That's what that is. It's the city girl pick-meism. It's the lotto pick-meism. It's the Meg Thee Stallion pick-meism. It's still pick-meism. Yeah, you fucking on a rich nigga, but you still got shot in the foot. Pick me of another fucking version, but nonetheless, pick me. Let's call a spade a spade. Like, that's just what that is. You not a pick me for a broke nigga, but you'll pick me nonetheless. That's just what that is. No different than Riri. Miss Riri got pregnant by Rocky. A lot of the black girlies was like, ooh, Riri, nah, that's not it. I know why you let that Saudi Arabia nigga. That nigga was eventually gonna kill your ass. Those type of men don't like women having agency. You are the living embodiment of, bitch, I do what the fuck I want to do. You're the living embodiment of agency. You're the living embodiment of I do what I want, women empowerment. So Rihanna and that Saudi Arabian man was never going to last, was never going to make it in the long run. He was going to either have to choose his religion, his wealth, his family, or Rihanna. And we know capitalism capitalizes. He was not going to let go of all of his benefits for Riri. She a billionaire, but he a multi-billionaire because he's Saudi royalty. Like, let's just call that what that is. If Riri were to marry that man, she would have had to wear a hijab and play her role. She would have had to cover up, maybe get them tattoos removed, converted to Islam, and that's that on that. And we know Miss Riri wasn't going to live that life. So eventually that shit was going to crumble. And it did. I think her bounce back, her rebound was Rocky because she had some type of relationship. They're in the industry. They did it before. But Rocky's a nigga from New York. I mean, niggas from New York is mad shiesty. I don't know why she even took that risk. It's giving me very much Nicki Minaj tease with her little felon boo, her little felon bae, her little rapist bae. Not a good look, but I understand why she did it. But I'm not surprised the nigga cheated. It's early. It's way too quick. She didn't even pop the kid out her cooch and he already cheating. Like, goddamn. But why would I be surprised? Wasn't Cardi cheated on when she was pregnant? Like, ain't that what they do? So, like, I wouldn't say for Rihanna it's pick-meism, but I will say it is a step down. Not necessarily because ASAP Rocky doesn't make as much money as Rihanna, but like the way Rihanna handles herself, the way that she carries herself, the way that she orchestrates her brand is totally more mature and refined than who ASAP Rocky is. ASAP Rocky's very forgettable. Rihanna's very iconic. Why even mingle with that? Why even take that shit seriously? But I think Rihanna's also at a part in her life where her friends and her family are getting married, settling down, having kids, and Riri wanted to have a kid. She even said that she would even accept being a single mother, but she wants to start that next chapter of her life. And when you're a celebrity, everybody wants to know what's going on with your twat, like they your OBGYN. Like they giving out pap smears. They just want to be all up in your cooch. So I guess at this particular point, she was ready for it. But like most Black women, I'll be honest with you, the way like relationships have been displayed to most Black women, the way that they understand agency and boundaries and love and self-respect and esteem and all that good stuff that usually isn't fully developed. I think she was trying to turn a toad into a prince, not realizing that like, just like Cinderella, she turned back to a slave girl. You could put the toad into a Givenchy suit, but at the end of the day, he's still going to be a toad. And unfortunately, that toad is your baby deity. So handle that. She a rich woman. She will figure it out. I am not crying tears for her. But to get back to the original point, that's pick-meism of another fucking branch as well. Yeah, Riri's not gonna be broke. Yeah, Riri don't need no fucking child tax credit. Yeah, Riri ain't gonna be, out here on the Maury show talking about, you are my baby daddy. We need to get this DNA test. I'm pretty sure Rihanna's not gonna have that type of L, but it's a L nonetheless. Just like Sierra, who fucked on Future, then bounced back on Russell Wilson, still a L. But that's pick meism of another branch. A non-pick me version of what I just talked about with Rihanna would be, I'm having my kid regardless if I'm married, I'm not married, single mother, or not single mother. But what I'm not going to do is lower my standards and lower my desire and partnership just to say I got somebody. If I'm going to be on this parenting journey alone, so be it. But what I'm not about to do is give credence and give agency, give some type of access to a toad so a toad could live and revel in the ability to say that they my baby daddy. I just wouldn't do that. But I'm not Riri.
For example, during my childcare days, I had a particular student who was either adopted or she was artificially inseminated. Like, that's her origin story. Regardless to what, she was raised by her mother predominantly. Her mother is an architect. They live in a really good zip code. She never needed for nothing. Though the little girl didn't know who her father was, she had uncles, she had cousins, a lot of her peers, they would do sleepovers and whatnot. They had fathers, so she would always be around masculine energy. She did not need for a father figure because her mother had a community to support her, as well as the girl was well adjusted, comes from a well-to-do background. Rihanna can have the same setup. She is rich. She is famous. She can buy anybody's fucking labor. That child will not need for anything if she is emotionally intelligent, responsible, and strategically plans for her child's success over her emotions, over her baby daddy, baby mama situation with her kid. Rihanna, could have gotten the artificial insemination route. She could have even went into the adoption route. She did not necessarily need to go down this route. But again, we live and we learn.
Now back to the comment. Y'all got to stop doing 50-50 with these dudes because they too comfortable. I do agree. I do agree there's a lot of men who have no problem living off of women very unapologetically. And yes, it's due to capitalism and the factors that I talked about, but a lot of them do feel as if they should be treated like, it's like a pimp shit. Like, oh, you should be out there on the streets working the block, get me my money. You my favorite hoe. You my bottom bitch. You go out there, you break your bag. You let dudes do whatever they want to do to your body. Give me my money. Run me my money. And that's how a lot of men feel, especially these reject men that I was talking about who are part of the army of reserved labor. They don't have much ties to anything. They really don't have an address. They really don't have any goods of their own, any properties, any monetary benefits, any investments, any stocks. They have nothing of their own. They're basically the forgotten, ghostless group of society. So when it comes to stability, especially things are getting more expensive, what they do tend to turn to is their penis. Well, I could fuck good. I look good. I'm going to get me a gym membership, work on my body. I'm going to be a funny, charismatic nigga. I'm going to get me some gear. I'm going to get me some knockoff fucking Gucci flip-flops or whatever the case may be to get one of these girlies. I talked about this countless times on my YouTube channel. I made content about this on my podcast, Blackwomanvibes. That's available on all podcast platforms. I talked about this. A lot of these girlies get caught up because they have not done any shadow work. They have not done any self-reflection. They have not gone to therapy. They think it's cute. They think other women in the room need to go to therapy, just not them. And then they wake up and they find themselves a fourth baby mama. You don't see your own blind spots. And because these men know how shallow and how broken and how bare basic a lot of these girlies expect relationships to be, how a lot of these girlies don't care about if these men got their shit together, if they are men of value. They just want a dick in their face. They just want to say, oh, I got somebody. They just want to bring somebody to brunch. They end up very, very quickly developing a crash course relationship. And when it eventually busts, then they're confused. Then they look like one of those Mr. Krabs meme where everything looks distorted in the background. They wake up and they find out that they the fourth baby mama. It's too fast. It's too passionate. It's too irregular. There's no forethought. There's no consistency. It's hot. It's passionate. It's based in sex. It's based on resource
siphoning.
Because a lot of times these men ain't got a job, ain't got a car, ain't got a home, ain't got nothing to give to nobody, can't offer nobody, can't do nothing for nobody. And they're looking for a low self-esteem woman who got a car or apartment or something that he could use. And then he parasitically attaches himself to her.
Selling these women future fake dreams of monogamy while they hunt for the woman that they really want but can't have access to due to a lack of financial stability. Or they move on to their next mark, aka a desperate, low self esteem, naive woman to take advantage of. This is wash, rinse, and repeat. The manosphere talks about this. The black capitalist talks about this. They all say it in subtle ways, and you can tell by their talking point. You can understand where they're coming from the way they ruminate in their delusions. They don't think things out. It's all about what you can do for me. What do you bring to the table? You're going to have to be help me nation build. It's nothing about what they do for others because they're so miserly, they're broke, and they're so parasitic. Perpetual boyhood, penis, problems, and perpetual boyhood. That's what they got to offer.
That happens all the time. But whenever I talk about, which I don't really do on this channel anymore, about doing that shadow work, seeing your blind spots, going to therapy, I feel like a broken record because a lot of the girlies don't think I'm talking about them. A lot of the girlies don't think that applies to them. A lot of the girlies don't think that they are one of those girls. So I kind of let that be what it is. I mean, your life is your life, right? Because if I was more so talking about how to get a high quality man with getting your titties and your ass done and what fork to eat the salad and all this juvenile basic vanity shit, y'all would eat that shit up and then stumble your ass on a Tory Lanez and then be shocked how the fuck you got there. Huh? Okay. Are you dumb, stupid, or dumb? In 15 years or so, these corporations will monetize on real property and y'all will literally be homeless living in cardboard boxes. I mean, that is Skid Row. Like, I don't know what to tell you, mama. We already there now. Like BlackRock owns literally whole blocks of homes, turning single family units into apartments, like individual apartments, kind of like I don't know if you know the show Good Trouble. If anybody knows that show, it's kind of like that. You live like in a group housing type of situation. And that's what they're doing. Rent is astronomically expensive, especially in the major cities and even places, especially in the South, that were deemed low cost living are all of a sudden starting to look like New York City prices. This is because of the inflation. This is because of the corporatization of the real estate market. So you have a lot of people who are the working poor. They're not the typical drugged out, soiled clothes, hangover on the sidewalk. No, they wear nice clothes, they're clean, they're manicured, well hygiene. And at the end of the workday, they go to their RV. At the end of the workday, they go sleep in their cars. There's a lot more of that going on in the richest country in the world than most people would like to acknowledge. And that is due to capitalism. On the side of the road, because the corporations own all the real estate, that's already happening. Clean drinking water is going to be scarce like some third world countries. Yes, that is true. A year ago, Kamala Harris even said the next wars might be on water. We might have a water war because of how scarce it is.
And here's the other thing, because I also, I'm in a lot of meetings on foreign policy. For years and generations, wars have been fought over oil. In a short matter of time, they will be fought over water. So when we think about building up our economy around our infrastructure on something like water policy, it's literally about jobs. It's about the fundamental source of life.
Even though we are floating on a water rock, there's a lot of water on this planet. Most of the water is not drinkable. It's like salt water. It's not water that you can drink without like getting diarrhea or like some type of fucking parasite thing in your system. So there's only a scarce amount of fresh water that we can actually drink. But a lot of them have been corporatized, like even spring water or things like Evan Water or Dasani, like they own water resources. So they have like privatized that. You have Pepsi, you have Coke going to other nations and doing the same thing. I think it's Pepsi or Coke, one of them owns a natural fresh water, drinking water for a Mexican town, and they basically bought it. So the people of that town can't even get the water that Pepsi or Coke, whatever corporation, bought. They can't tap into that water resource. And it's super expensive. Water, plain ass water, is super expensive compared to a bottle of Pepsi, a bottle of Coke. That's how corporatization works. So we're already experiencing that. And when I say we, I mean people of this earth, but Americans have not, and they soon will. There is a river, I believe, between Arizona and Colorado that is becoming more and more diminished. And the bordering states depend on that one water resource and is shrinking by the fucking day. And those are places where it's really fucking hot and they have forest fires and all this other shit. So what's going to happen when the water runs dry? These are things that we are not discussing the way that we should be discussing. It's going to be like Haiti, where 95% of the people live on 5% of the nation's wealth. It's going to be like Haiti, where 95% of the people live on 5% of the nation's wealth. Yeah. A lack of equity, a lack of resources. Yes, but we're already living in the Gilded Age. During the pandemic, it has been recorded. That was the biggest wealth transfer. What does that mean? The rich only got richer, but a lot of people depleted their savings during the pandemic, lost their homes, became homeless. They can't keep up with inflation. Their paychecks aren't keeping up with the rates within the free market. Like, that's already been happening, ma. Like, that's this is life. That's today. That's now. Women gotta stop wearing struggle. Women gotta stop. I think she meant struggling with a man on their sleeve like it's something to be proud of. Sorry for the little rant. I mean, talk your shit. I talk my shit. But I do think, look, I'll use me as example. I'm more artsy. I'm more spiritual. Can I do the logical, the analytical, the scientific? Of course. It's not like something super fucking complicated, but I know it's going to take me a lot more time to really, really, really get into it because it's not my natural method of operating. If I were in a relationship, my significant other would have to be better at me when it comes to those type of things, because I'm aware that that's not really my forte. That's kind of my weakness. And I'm okay with admitting that. It'll be totally fine if he's into arts, he's into music, he's into spirituality, he's into psychology. That'd be totally fine. But he has to be better at something that I'm not so great at. Because if we're going to make our life together, we're going to be married, we're going to be in partnership, we're going to have kids together, I expect him to be my quote unquote other half, in the sense of, if we are partners, we can't be exactly the match of one another. There has to be something that you're good at that I don't really know, and things that I'm good at that he doesn't really know. So we can bring those qualities into our relationship and make it bigger and better and more solid than it would be individually. And if that's not him, then he's not my man. And that's just the way people should operate in general in relationships. You should always want to be with someone who is as great as you, but also you'd want to be with someone who challenges you or has more understandings in other areas in life that you don't have, so you can be better at it, or at least they can assist you with it, and vice versa. And I do think a lot more women, especially the Black girlies, should be more intentional in that aspect. We already get it. Don't date the thugs. We already get it. Be more intentional. Don't be so surface level. Don't be so vain. Like, Gucci flip-flops shouldn't be your top priority. We get it. But the quality of man, that's not really discussed, because we're still talking about, oh, is he a high value man or is he a low value man? And what does he wear? And what is he this? And what is he that? And I'm like, you know, Ted Bundy was a smooth talking criminal, right? Okay. Just putting that shit out there. Because I remember there was a story. I didn't really look into it because I don't really like trauma and drama just sitting on my conscience, sitting on my head. But I remember that story of that black girlie who was out on one of these high value mandates with this white man, and then she ended up dead. And that white man kind of like skedaddled from the scene, and he wasn't pressed charges. The police didn't interview him. They just was kind of like, well, black women be dying. Next. There was no missing white woman syndrome. There was no Amber Alert. It was just like, next. But then again, 1/3 of women who are murdered, matricide committed in this country, the victims are black women. Black women have disproportional high rates of being victims to sexual assault and murder. So I'm not surprised that that happened. I'm not okay with the response, but I'm not shocked. And the men that prey on black women are also not shocked. That's why they keep doing it. And because we have this weird sick mentality within black circles where you don't snitch, hold your man down, you know, he didn't do it. Well, you know how these bitches be. They just trying to pin it on a black man. You got to have his back. It just continues to the point where it's normal to report on the death of black women. So normal, it's 1/3 of the reports. And black women aren't even 1/4 of the population. Peep that. Peep that. Not even 1/4 of the population, but we are 1/3 of the homicide rates. Now tell me how that math adds up. Next comment from Cece, once again. Another pressing issue is wage theft. That is true. You're already being paid shit at these minimum wage jobs. And to top it off, they're skimming off the top and not giving you everything you're owed. As well as, I got to put it out there, a lot of these low paying jobs, what Eric Adams, the mayor of New York, said, low skilled workers, a lot of these baristas, a lot of these servers, a lot of these minimum wage entry level basic jobs, these Amazon workers, they went to school. They got a bachelor's. They have other skills. But just like you, me, and everybody else, they got bills to pay. So if that Fortune 500 company ain't calling, if that managerial class ain't hiring, if they can't, maneuver their way up the social economic ladder, that doesn't mean rent ain't due on a first. That don't mean the bills are somehow postponed. They still got bills. They still got ambitions. They still got the same things as everybody else. So they take on these shitty ass jobs because they got bills too. And like I said in the beginning of this video, if we had universal health care, if we were guaranteed good jobs without having to go into debt at some college institution, do you think we would be this much of a bootlicker society to the capitalists? Absolutely not. So you see why they don't want to give us these basic human rights? Because if you start feeling yourself and getting healthy and loving on yourself and reading and working on your mental health, working on your wellness, you'll start to love yourself more, develop yourself, and know your worth and demand your worth. Organize, unionize, hold each other in solidarity. And that's why they're okay with the rat race being what it is. Because you're too stressed, you're too anxious, and you're too terrified to do anything other than what the capitalists say. Because like I know, they'll have another one by the end of the week. They'll have another one by the end of the month. And this is why the Great Resignation is such a monkey wrench in the capitalist system. And unfortunately, it took a pandemic for us to really realize our fucking worth to this economic monstrosity of a system. because we were okay being talked down to, belittled, wage theft, disrespected, sexually assaulted, all types of shit at the workplace, because we felt like we had to. We didn't want to be complainers. We wanted to grab ourselves by the bootstraps. We didn't want to be a troublemaker. And everybody was posting their best lives on the gram, right? Going to Punta Cana in Puerto Rico, going to Dubai, jet setting. Everybody was living the high life, and you didn't want to be the only loser on the internet talking about how your life ain't shit, your job ain't shit, and you stress the fuck out. But because of the pandemic, it allowed a lot of people to loosen their waistband, unzip their pants, unbuckle their belt, and be like, fuck, I'm stressed. I ain't got no money. Capitalism on my ass. This shit ain't working for me. It allowed people to be more real and talk about the hardships that they're going through. And because of that, that enabled people to seek other options, whether that means go back to school, whether that means quit their shitty ass jobs, whether that means take on a better job, even if it's paying $1 or $2 more, whatever the case may be. And though it's not organized, unless we're talking about like the ALU, which is the Amazon Labor Union, which is spearheaded by Chris Smalls, but most of people in the workplace in the capitalist system weren't organized. But a lot need to be organized. And it can't be the armchair political analyst. It can't be the YouTubers with the big number count who only report their reactions and their interpretation of the latest political news, breaking news story. Because all they do is report on what is, but they have no real intention on changing anything. With their massive platforms, you don't see them calling out the system. You don't see them organizing anybody. You don't see them making certain moves because they want to be a niche. They want to be the niche. They want to be able to report on the issues, collect their membership and their Patreon dollars, and call it a day. They just want to report on the shit, but they don't actually want to be leaders of anything. They don't want to put their ass on the line. Even Bernie Sanders' ass. I always knew he was bitch made. I'm gonna be honest with it. Hurt feelings. No shade. I always knew he was bitch made. The man is a senior citizen. If that man was gonna say something with his chest, he would have said that shit 40 years ago. That man is really on some AARP. I've fallen and I can't get up. And at 74, I'm supposed to believe he's gonna lead the revolution? Okay. Bet. He wasn't raising no hell under the Clinton administration, under the Obama administration, under the Bush administration. He's been carrying the water. He's been the bitch boy. He's been the bottom bitch for multiple decades. And in 2016, he discovered his nuts. Okay. Bet. So I was never shocked that Bernie flip-flopped twice. People are still crying and scratching their asses trying to figure out how that political theater got played on their asses. So you can't depend on anybody other than your community, because it's going to be your community who's going to get hit. And if you stay at where you stay at, that means you're going to get hit too. So you have a vested interest just by living where you live to change where you live, because you're going to get hit just like your neighbor going to get hit. So it's advantageous for everybody, whoever's listening to this, to organize with your community, with your neighbor. Because these YouTubers ain't gonna save you. These political figureheads ain't gonna save you. These political commentaries ain't gonna save you. Your favorite Instagrammy influencer ain't gonna save you. Damn sure Bill Gates ain't gonna save you. You gonna have to save you. And that's a dead ass fact. That money then goes back to the pockets of the execs as their business, which they'll spend on coke and they'll sniff off a hooker's ass. Yeah, they're good. You think Jeff Bezos is really hurting if Amazon took a couple of hits? You think Jeff Bezos would actually feel the burn if he actually paid all of his workers $70,000 off top? Even the ones who are working the warehouse, even the ones who are packaging the items, even the ones who are driving the trucks. Do you really think all of a sudden Jeff Bezos is going to go broke if he actually paid his workers a livable wage? No. No, the fuck he would not. He would still be wealthy than a motherfucker. So why doesn't he do it? Simply because he does not want to. And that should burst the bubble of this benevolent billionaire myth, this benevolent capitalism myth, this benevolent rich people are so generous, they're so philanthropic, and we haven't even got into the scam that is philanthropy, because it is a scam. If wealthy people were so kind, we wouldn't have such wealth inequality. For you to be a billionaire, by existence, you have to be exploiting, because there's nothing that you can do or produce or sell that is worth $1 billion. You have to wage theft. You have to exploit. You have to cause wars. You have to do divide and conquer, because that's the only way you're going to become a billionaire. There's not too many things that exist on earth that you could package up and sell, and then on hard work, you become a billionaire. There's some exploitation somewhere in the chain of command, somewhere in the chain supply. There is some type of exploitation, because that is billionaire status. That is multi-millionaire status. Because if it was just so easy for anybody to be wealthy, then why is it the majority of the people on this earth are poor? And why does it seem that the rich only get richer? How? Unless it is systematically set up to be that way. People just chalk it up to life's not fair. Psych, until you make it fair for you, which is what the elites do. Exactly. They change policies, they buy politicians, they have lobbyists. Like if they don't like a particular law, they get lobbyists to push their particular interest. That happens all the time. All the time. Whether we're talking about blood diamonds, whether we're talking about Hershey's exploiting children for cocoa beans, like whatever the fuck we're talking about, they all participate in this shit. The left hand washes the right hand and they both wash each other. The corporations and the politicians are not only in bed, they are married to each other, in and outdoor. Former blah, blah, blah of the blah, blah, blah presidential cabinet used to work for blah, blah, blah corporation. The exec that blah, blah, blah. It happens so fucking often, in and outdoor. It's a kitchen door. College used to be affordable. Exactly. In the 70s, you can get a little summer part-time job and be able to pay off your college tuition for the year. Ain't no part-time job you can take in these days and pay off your goddamn college tuition. That's just what that, unless you selling pussy or selling dope, I don't see that happening. And not like selling pussy like on the streets, like you selling pussy on some like Ashley Madison shit, on some
Seeking arrangements or OnlyFans. There's not too many other side situations, side gigs, side hustles that you could have that's going to turn around and create such a massive profit in such a short time that you'll be able to pay off hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loan debt.
one of those sugar baby websites. That's the only way I can see you doing something for the part-time and getting paid that type of stacks. And again, for those who are crying about, well, I paid off my student loans. Yeah, when your student loans cost you like $100, that's not what it's costing today.
Yesteryear's prices ain't today's prices. And a matter of fact, there are senior citizens today getting their social security checks, those itty bitty checks, garnished due to student loans. So it's not just a bratty, avocado toast, entitled millennial problem. It seems to be a generational problem, an economic problem.
And then there's some people will be like, well, it's not my fault. I didn't take out loans. Yes, because rich people don't need fucking loans. Rich people don't need to take out loans. So of course your dumb ass wouldn't need to take out a fucking loan because you got mommy and daddy's money. For the majority of people, we don't got mommy and daddy money. Therefore, we took out student loans. Duh. Just like Aunt Becky and her kids didn't win a college seat off of their hard-earned merit. They stole those seats. And if you think it's only her who did that shit, you're kidding yourself. That happens all the time. The only difference is Aunt Becky got caught. That's the only difference. But it happens all the time. Meanwhile, there are brilliant poor kids who would spank the asses of these elitist pricks at these Ivy League institutions, but they don't have the means, they don't have the money to actually be able to afford the tuition. So they end up working these low-skilled jobs because they need money now. Now you have to take out a mortgage in order to go to one of these Americans' top universities. Exactly. And then you'll want to buy a house later on, which is another mortgage. The government will bail out the corporations before the people. We saw this during the 2008 housing market. Wall Street got bailed out. Yo granny lost her house. Like that's again, perfect example. The corporations and the government are not only in bed, they are married. How is it that it's okay for granny to lose her fucking house, for granny to lose her fucking shelter? She's old. She's retired. She might even have chronic illness, but it's okay for her to lose her home. But these middle-aged, rich, elitist, entitled, narcissistic assholes, they get the financial backing of the government, but not the everyday people. You should see how the government works against the people because it's blatant. They don't even try to hide it. The federal government made up all three branches no longer works in the interest of the people, but the interest of the corporations, which influence how these laws are written. Exactly. What's written within them and how they are passed. I want to do away with Congress so bad. You are not the only person. So many people are saying Congress is useless, it's corrupt, it's a bunch of senile dinosaurs who are power hungry and elitist. We need to let that shit go. But how many people even want to get into like the nitty gritty of the United States? The United States is not a democracy. It's a republic first and foremost. And then on top of that, when people talk about all this equity and hope and all this, like my forefathers shit, I'm like, first of all, your forefathers who used to dress in drag, their bitch asses were sexist, racist, and genocidist. So like this idea of America used to be great. For who? For who? And a lot of the people who push that bullshit nonsense, even if you are white and even if you are male, your forefathers weren't looking or checking for your asses because you were broke. You did not own land. You did not own property. You were not wealthy. You did not come from a family with a name. So guess what? You would have been a fucking serf. You would have been a fucking tool for the land owning big wigs who actually ran the country. Once upon a time ago, those were the only people who were able to vote. You had to be white, you had to be male, you had to be Christian, and you had to be land owning. That's a small particular demographic of the United States. So most people would have been fucked. So when people talk all this, well, my forefathers, this, that, and the third, I'm like, your forefathers wasn't checking for your bitch ass. You was never going to be inside the club. They was never going to let you in. Stop it. Stop being a bootlicker. They were not checking for your ass. Them laws was not set up for your broke ass. They're not checking for you. The people have a Second Amendment right to bear arms. Do you think the police state would be able to contain the peace if everyone decided to rebel at once? Of course not. It's been said that it only takes about 20 to 30% of the population for a revolution to happen. Like literally the New Deal came to be because everybody organized to push some type of drastic social change, whether we're talking about the unions, whether we're talking about the communists, which had a heavy presence within the United States. Don't let rewritten history fool you. There was a heavy fucking communist movement within the United States. And it wasn't like the Red Scare, the evil Russians, the evil Chinese. Like, no, it was red, white, and blue white motherfuckers who believed in communism. There was a heavy socialist presence. There was the civil rights presence. Like, there was so many social upheavals that they had to do something. Especially these are the people who survived the Great Depression. So it was either you create social benefits or we the people are going to revolt. So yes, it only takes 20-30% of the population to have real change. I mean, we saw what happened during 2020 with the George Floyd protest, whether you were for it or against it. It showed you that the people can unite. Thousands of people were in these streets. Part of me also believe it was because of lockdown. A lot of people wanted to get out and be social and do wild shit. But also, people across the globe saw how inhumane the police state is. And a lot of people across the globe can relate. And I'm not just talking about in white countries, in African countries, in Black countries. Hell, Brazil has the biggest Black population outside of Africa. And their police brutality is wild fucking crazy. Every 15 minutes, a young Black Brazilian youth is murdered by the police state. That shit is crazy. It's by their own Black brethrens, their own Black sisterins who are killing their asses. So it's not just an American thing. It is the police institution. It is systematic. So yes, I do think people can revolt and go against the grain. But yes, there is the police state. And yes, there is the surveillance state. And because, like I mentioned within this long ass video that I hope that y'all actually listen to, capitalism has us by the fucking throat. That's the reason why most people don't revolt, because they don't want to be another new added member to Skid Row.
Or fuck around and be on the CIA FBI list like Assata Shakur. You got to flee your own country because they got your wanted sign on your motherfucking head. They got a dead or alive hit on your motherfucking head. Or a political prisoner, because let's be honest, there's a lot of political prisoners that y'all cosplay for capitalism when it's Black History Month, when Netflix and Hulu wants to make some money off of drama, trauma, Black exploitation, Black death. Y'all want to Angela Davis, yo, Black fist up in the air, but y'all forgot those political prisoners who are aging, who are dying in prison, who are in solitary confinement, whose bodies are being wasted away. Y'all not sending them no motherfucking cash app. Y'all not sending them no motherfucking care packages. Y'all not actively engaging their cases trying to get them freed. Y'all forgot about them. Y'all Black excellence now. You got a Black president. Beyonce got Coachella. So you don't care no more. And we see that. They see that. I see that. And many people would want to make that change, go against the grain. But where's the community backing? Where's the solidarity? Where's the, if they arrest my ass, I know I at least gonna have 1,000 people at the fucking State House talking about what's good. Y'all don't do that. It's me, myself, and I. Fuck everybody else. I gotta get mines. And the capitalists know that. I know that. We know that. And that's why a lot of people see it for what it is, but don't intervene and don't try to commune with people, organize with people, because when shit hits the fan, y'all are nowhere to be found.
They don't want to be in a situation where they really let the state feel their oppression and end up like Prophet of Doom. This is not me copying for him. That's not me caping for him. That's not me making excuses for him. That's not me doing any of that. But listen to that crazy motherfucker's videos. He was obviously tapped. He was obviously deranged, but he was obviously struggling in this system. And like I said in my previous videos, you're going to see the same shit over and over. It's going to be wash, rinse, and repeat throughout the nation. In the United States, it has the highest high school shooting rates. Like that's ridiculous. But here it is in the United States, the best country in the world. Whether we're talking about the Rittenhouses, whether we're talking about the Brooklyn subway shooter, whether we're talking about the massage parlor guy, you're going to see more of that. Because people are going to become more and more mentally unraveled, mentally unwell. But also because of this economic squeeze, a lot of people are going to feel so downtrodden, and they're going to want to either victimize other people because they feel victimized, or they want to get revenge, or they want to be seen. Like, I'm going to do this disastrous shit so you can see my pain. They're going to symbolize their atrocities to be notoriously remembered on some Elliot Rodgers shit. You're going to see more of that because of how brutal this society is. And again, no one's talking about that. It's easy to say, oh, it's a one-off offense. Oh, this person was deranged. Well, you know how those people can be. It's harder to sit there and criticize and analyze how your society, how your environment created that type of
monster or rebel or catastrophe, whatever you want to call it, whether we're looking at the particular person who committed the heinous crime, or we're looking at the environment that created the person and enabled said person to commit the heinous crime. But regardless to what, you're going to see this more, not just with adult men, but you're going to see this with children as well. Because whatever happens with the adults, it trickles down to the children, because children are in the same household with adults. Children's parents are adults. So like, you are going to see more and more cracks in this American exceptionalism that many people are not ready to face. They are not ready to face America's karma and America's shadow via capitalism, and how toxic and exploitative it is, not to those foreign poors in other countries that, let's be honest, most Americans don't give a fuck about, but it's going to be you. It's going to be your neighbors. It's going to be your children. It's going to be your community. It hits different when it hits home.
As much as I dislike the incels, I dislike the MGTOWs, I dislike the manosphere, I dislike all of these fringe, weirdo, male, delusional, violent spaces, I can also recognize they exist because a lot of these men are wayward. They don't have economic benefits. They have no real social opportunities. They don't have economic opportunities. They're either failure to launch, or they're just failures in some way, shape, or form in this capitalistic system. So they hover together, they hive mind together, they stew in the same toxic and delusional, tragic mental thesis, and they just ruminate in that energy. And you see, again, it doesn't matter if these men are rich or poor, they still have the same mentality. How is Lil Wayne any different than a random ass nigga from Holly Grove? Same mentality. How is Cam Newton any different than the manosphere on YouTube? Same mentality. And you're going to see a lot more of them get out of pocket and become more violent once this economic system, this Hunger Game really kicks up. And a lot of them are going to be out of pocket. And a lot of them are going to start victimizing women even more. I'm just going to be real with you. Like I said, during the last days of Rome, men were out here forcing themselves on other men in the public. It was very much ravishing. It was very much taking. It was very much the purge mentality. Do you think because we have Wi-Fi somehow like that's not capable of happening? We heard the stories about what was going on during Katrina in the Superdome. Do we somehow like think we are far removed from that? Do we somehow think men are more developed and emotionally aware and more sophisticated,
emotionally intelligent, respect women's bodies and their agency, real productive and helpful neighbors? Like, they're just here to be Superman.
Like, do we really believe that? Because I don't. I'm just gonna be honest with you. I don't. The way these homicide rates are set up, I don't. The police state is made up of individuals who were civilians before they became cops or members of the military. When they take off their uniforms, they become civilians again. But that's not the mentality. A lot of police officers see themselves as police, a different rank within civilian society. And a lot of these police officers were former veterans. They were veterans. They came from war. So a lot of them have that mentality, that rank and file. A lot of them see that they are above the average civilian. That's why they brutalize people. That's why they tell people who are recording them, hey, don't record me. If you don't do what I tell you to do, I'll write you up a ticket. I'll send you to jail. They break the law. They fear monger. They bust into people's houses and bust rounds. Like, they think they are above the average person. So even when they take off the badge, they take off the suit, the mentality stays the same. They don't change from that. So the idea of they should see they're a human just like we're a human. If that was the case, police brutality wouldn't be a thing. But here we are. It's still a thing. And we see that it's not necessarily a racial thing. There is a racial component, but it's not solidly based on just white officers are evil, because we've seen Black officers participate in oppressing poor Blacks or poor people in general. So it's not just a race thing, it's a race and class thing. And civilians can hold other civilians accountable. Catch my drift? For example, if there was a police officer who was stepping out of line and being hostile or brutal towards the civilians, and let's say 20 people within the community stopped what they were doing to circle around the police officer, and they all pulled out their camera and they were like, I am doing a civilian arrest. This is a citizen's arrest. We do not allow this type of behavior. You're breaking this law. We caught you, this and the third. I can see the civilians outnumbering that cop, and that cop having to either stop, or those, if they have the cojones to do it, citizens could arrest that police officer and hold that police officer accountable. The problem is most people think the police are on their side. Most people think the police are the good guys. They don't know the statistics that police officers only solve about 5% of cases. They don't hear the stories about police officers being corrupt. They don't hear the stories about like Daniel Hoscroft, who was raping poor Black women in the South and getting away with it. They think those are just a few bad apples. That's just a few of them. They don't think it's a systematic issue. Because A, they haven't experienced police brutality, and B, they're okay with the police harming other people because they see the police as the good guys. Police are here to protect property. And if you're a property owner, whether it's a store, whether it's a residential, when you see the police acting up, in your mind, they're doing the good thing because they're preserving the community's image. They're preserving my property. They're on my side. My business, my property taxes fund their salaries. They're in my family. So of course, you don't see them as violent extremists. You see them as your friend. And that's why it's so hard to hold police officers accountable. Even when we see them kill people on camera, even when we see them say racist shit, even when they break the law, there's always, always, always that percentage of the population who are like, well, if you just would have listened, if, the suspect would have just spoke to the police, if they didn't, it's always what the victim could have done better. It's never what the cop could have done better. And it doesn't matter how much money you throw at the police union, the police fraternity, the police in general, nothing improves. Still police brutality, still corruption, still illegal activities. Still, these cases are not being solved. How many fucking rape cases are just chilling in the fucking lab? Go catch these motherfuckers. They're not resolving cases. They're not preventing crimes. They're not solving crimes. Like, what in the entire fuck are we funding these motherfuckers? Oh, to protect the richest property. That's why. That's why. because they are above the law. They think they're above their law. And there was a court case. I don't remember the specific details, but there was a court case where the judge final verdict was police officers don't have to put their lives in jeopardy to save the public, because there was some type of court case where there's some type of situation going on occurring, maybe like a bank robbery or some shit, and they call the police to show up and protect the people because they're supposed to serve and protect. And the police officers didn't. They either didn't come or they didn't try to save anybody. And then when they held the cop accountable, the judge's verdict was basically, well, police officers don't necessarily have to protect and serve. Like, it's not their job to like put their lives on the line. So if we know this to be true, then what in the entire fuck are we funding these people to the point of multi-billion dollars like the New York City police?
And not for nothing, let's not discount the fact that many people, especially Americans, are brought up under propaganda. Propaganda, but police state version. Propaganda basically means propaganda that is promoting the police state, whether we're talking about the Avengers movies, whether we're talking about Cops, the TV show, whether we're talking about Bad Boys, the movie, whether we're talking about Officer Friendly, the school cop, whether we're talking about Captain America, whether we're talking about Law and Order, whether we're talking about the kids game, Cops and Robbers, or Cowboys and Indians, etc. We are heavily being propagandized to respect, idolize, and think cops are heroes. Firefighters, on the other hand, yes, both first responders, so to speak, but firefighters show up when there's a fire. Cops show up when they feel like it, and usually they add fuel to the fire, especially in cases where they are dealing in communities that they fear or disparage or have no cultural ties to, and when dealing with the homeless and or mentally ill, they show their ass. So factoring in all of that propaganda or copaganda, most people do believe the police are the good guys, and it's very hard for them to see cops in any other light because most Americans are brought up to believe police officers are there to help, serve, and protect, that they are the good guys by virtue of being police officers. Virtue signaling and ritualistic performances continue the narrative of cops being automatically good. From the police fraternity, news media, and politicians all keep up the facade. Most people truly believe cops behaving badly is a one-off, not the norm. It's easier to hold accountable and fire an Uber driver than it is to hold accountable and fire and or imprison in case, they are actually doing criminal shit, arrest and convict them. Even when we see their crimes caught on camera, there's a high possibility they will never see the inside of a jail cell. And if they do, convicted cops serve less time than other inmates and are even protected by correctional officers within the jail system, the prison system. It's not unheard of, after doing a bid, these convicted cops find a job at another police department or find work doing similar duties such as armed security, surveillance, and even private bodyguards for the parasite class.
They didn't save any of those people in the Brooklyn train who got shot up. They didn't prevent this crazy motherfucker from shooting up the place. They didn't call the ambulance for the people who got shot up. They didn't even have no cameras for this man. It was the citizens, it was the civilians who caught this man. It was the people in the train who caught images of Prophet of Doom. It was a man who works at McDonald's. Okay, it was an essay at McDonald's who recognized Prophet of Doom in the McDonald's and called the cops. It was civilians doing the motherfucking job. It was the community members coming together. So again, what in the fuck are we funding police? But people ain't ready to have that type of discussion.
I have work here. I do security cameras and this store. and I was working inside the store, see the security cameras, like checking in the cameras, and I see the guy, he walking in the sidewalk like this. The guy, he killed the 7 people in Brooklyn. Like I was 2 days I don't sleep, and I see that when I see the 7 people die, I cannot breathe. Like I cannot sleep too. Like I was. I don't want to. I don't like the life. Like try to. I want to try to work. I cannot because this guy, he put me in trouble. Like when he see the 7 people killed. Maybe the 7 people have kids. Maybe have family. Maybe something like that. Like, and I see him. He have bag in his bag, and he was walking the sidewalk, and he put the bag in the street like this. And I see the people, guys, please. The people was walking behind him. I told him, guys, keep far from him. Please, this guy is gonna do something. Like this, people think I am crazy. Like nobody tries to believe me. Like I told him, guys, trust me. This is the guy. And I see the police walking from over there. I thought the police, this is the guy. He did the problem in Brooklyn. This guy, catch him, guys, catch him. And he catch him. Thank God we catch him. Thank you very much. I cannot hear you.
You saw officers across.
Of course, I see him here in the street. I told him, yo, this is the guy. He killed the people. This guy, he killed the people in Brooklyn. And I want to make sure because I don't want to put anybody in trouble. I see him, yo, this is the guy. Like I can't believe that in my eyes, bro. Like we need to tell the police, and we told the police, and the police catch him, and the police just told me, thank you, and he left.
How do you think the colonists went against Britain for the American Revolution? I'm not really sure what you mean by that. Of course, all I am saying is in theory, and I don't think people would get on the same page collectively. There was a lot of things during the American Revolution and pre-American Revolution that caused a lot of the reason to want to divest from Britain, on top of the fact that Britain was trying to use like the Americas as like a colony. So you pay taxes to Britain, you would still be under Britain law, and this and a third, where like the Americans wanted to be their own individual people and they didn't want to be connected nor have Britain have dominion over them. So there was a lot of other factors to that, but I understand what you're saying. Collectivize, have solidarity, overthrow the system. That's very much possible. But again, because of these bum ass jobs, how many people have the time to join these council meetings, to join these town hall meetings, to have deep political theories and conversations? Like, how many people are doing that? Most people are going home, partaking in their favorite vices, whether it's alcohol, whether it's weed, whether it's sex, hopping on the Twitter, tweeting their lives away, watching the premiere of blah, blah, blah reality trashy ass shows, and trying to cope with the fact that the next fucking day they're going to have to do this shitty fucking routine all over again. Most people are so stressed out and so like out of body, they can't invest in these type of conversations because it's just so big. It's a big, multifaceted issue. It's not something where it's like, oh, police brutality, we just, abolish police and that's just it. Like there's just so many complex steps and it has to be hit in the right direction. You got to talk to the right people and you got to collectivize and this and that. All of that on top of the fact that you probably got kids, you got a job, you have other commitments, you might have a relationship, like all of these things happening all at once. And most people just are too exhausted to keep all these other issues and commitments alive on top of what they are having to do on the daily basis. But yes, I do agree. If people really could collectivize, which is why I make the videos that I make and I talk about these particular topics, if people can collectivize with their own community members and not be scared to say hi to your neighbor and get into the nitty-gritty of things, things can actually change. But this is why corporations want you to fear your neighbors, but pretend that you and Amazon have a special fucking relationship because you buy their shitty ass products on retainer. You think that you have a relationship with these brands and these corporations, but try to get something without it being transactional. Now go to your neighbor and ask them for a cup of sugar. They'll give you that shit tax-free. But go to Amazon and say, let me get this shit for the free. Let's see how deep your relationship truly is. Let's see how non-transactional it really is.
And the gag of all is that a lot of Amazon products that get returned end up in the dump. And it ends up being wasted. The products that you no longer want, or it arrived damaged, or whatever the case may be, whenever you hit that fucking return slip, that return address, it just ends up in the dump. So they can give that shit to donations. They can give it to mutual aid. They can give it to Goodwill, Salvation Army. But why don't they? Because that's not in the rubric of capitalism. If you can't make a profit off of it, then it's junk. Even if it is in pristine condition, even if it is in like new conditions, even if it hasn't been opened. That's how deranged capitalism is.
So just capitalize as much as possible. Let the poor stay poor. That's exactly what the capitalists think. Let the poor stay poor. Let the poor stay ignorant. Let the poor stay stressed out because they won't collectivize, and they will continue to bootlick or at least play their role so they don't get bulldozered. They won't be ground to powder by this capitalist system. Historically, men have fought in wars because we live in a patriarchy. True. Men need to get up and do something. Also true. But also, I'm not a man, but I have to also put this out there. A lot of men are dealing with more stresses than men in the past, right? What do I mean? Men of the past have been poor. Poverty is not a new thing. Within every empire, there has always been an element of poverty. The difference now is that even if a man was poor, let's say 500 years ago, he had some skills, even if it was survival skills. Most men and just people in general have no survival skills. Most people really do think food just magically pops up at the grocery store. Most people don't know how to catch their own fish, how to grow their own crops. They don't have no idea to start from scratch. Most people don't know how to build a home, even if it's a little raggedy ass shack. These are things that are basic survival instincts that we should have. But because of capitalism, because the way this society is focused, you are skilled to be a producer for capitalism. When you want those basic trainings, you pay for that. Whether it's Boy Scout, Girl Scout, or some other survival type of organization. It's not something that's passed down like it used to be, let's say 500 years ago, from mother to child, a father to son. Now it's you have to go and search for that type of instinctual human skill that used to be damn near inherited, because this is the society that we live in.
In this society, most people would know how to do something as basic as administrative assistance, organizing files, all of that office shit, right? But what the fuck does that gotta do with how you eat? People don't know how to hunt. People don't know how to start fires. Basic human survival skills. But we know how to log on to the internet. Because of capitalism. Capitalism shapes our reality. Capitalism tells us what is yay, what is nay. Capitalism is what we all vie in and for. Our basic survival skills perished with trying to align our bread and butter with what the capitalists say is important to us. And now that capitalism is failing us, our very, very basic skills of survival would be somewhat of a buffer to aid us through this catastrophe of late stage capitalism. But as I said, most people don't have these skills. So you fucked in the job market, you fucked out of the job market, and you fucked on your basic survival skills.
So the average man, his reputation, his value is based off of how much he can produce for this capitalist system. And again, if you are part of the reserved army of labor, the outcast society, or you're a man and you just can't get ahead for whatever reason, or let's say they offshored your job, so your job no longer is available in the United States, it's been shipped off to China, or let's say you're elderly, you have the skill sets, but because of ageism, nobody's hiring you, that takes a toll on your manhood. Because again, you are stuck to this capitalistic system as a man, just like everybody else. So you are one of millions in the sea of capitalism trying to keep up and catch up. And as opposed to men of yesteryear, even if capitalism still existed, they would still be able to survive. A lot of these men are not able to survive. And that is affecting their overall well-being, their mental health, and their ability to think outside of the system, their ability to think revolutionary, their ability to want to change the system, because they can't even keep up with the basic expectations of survival. That's not an excuse, but that's an understanding. There is a thing called death of despair, where a lot of people, especially men, white middle class men in general, who have been committing suicide or getting into drug addiction or just wasting away in some way, shape, or form, dying not because of old age or natural circumstances. They're dying because they are literally being plummeted by capitalism. And they're taking that toll out on their personhood, on their bodies. With a mental health that's scattered and with a physical body that's that abused, how does one come up with some type of revolutionary steps or some type of like change the system, even a little meetup group? How do you even come up with like step one when your whole life is fragmented? The way this country is set up, where it is cutthroat, is how the elites stay in power, because people are divided. But it's not just people are divided just to be divided. It's the capitalist system that keeps us divided. The same corporations who talk shit about CNN are the same corporations who talk shit about Fox News, and they fund them both. Corporations are known to put money in the Democratic Party and in the Republican Party. Who are buying the politicians? Is it not the corporations? And these are the same corporations who are grounding the working class into poverty. It is the corporations who are controlling the narrative. The same corporations in government who are saying, if you say anything that's against the narrative of the United States when it comes to Ukraine and Russia, you'll be blackballed, you'll be silenced, you'll be wiped off of the internet. That's by design. The same corporatists who fund the politicians are the same corporatists who are telling you you won't own anything, but you'll be happy. They're the ones who are providing you your entertainment. They're the ones who are giving you your leaders. They're the ones who are producing your TV shows and your movies. They are the ones who are giving you your favorite influencer and music icon. These are the ones who are curating your reality, my reality, our reality. So it's not just people are divided, people are dumb, people are lazy. It's literally trying to find the truth in a maze of lies. It's literally going down the rabbit hole, because our whole existence, what we were told, was a complete and total lie. This is why people make a lot of references to George Orwell's 1984 or
The Matrix movie, or any movie that is sci-fi inspired, but really taps into the reality of like, you think you have agency, but you don't. You think you have free will, but you don't. You think this system is for your best benefit, but it is not. And the more we see these sci-fi movies turn into real life edition, a lot of us start asking these questions that we either never had or we avoided, but now it's just too on the nose for us to say it's just a coincidence. Whether it is predictive programming or just a wild ass coincidence, whatever you want to call it, it is modern day reality under capitalism.
kind of foreshadowing the reality that we ultimately live in current reality. These are not just interesting takes or, coincidences. This is exactly what we're living in. So it's hard to organize. It's hard to get people to give a fuck. It's hard to have these conversations, but like pussyfooting around it or acting like it doesn't exist isn't going to resolve anything. So this is why I and a lot of other content creators put intent in talking about these things, because who's going to be able to break the echo chamber if it isn't for people like us? We have to have these conversations. You think CNN would ever tell you how to organize for a fucking union when they're getting Amazon checks? Of course fucking not. So of course it's going to be the everyday people who are going to have to bring these truths to other everyday people. People are not just willfully dumb just to be willfully dumb. People are not just ignorant. People are not just selfish. People are not just narcissistic. It's just a lot on their plate. And a lot of them just sincerely don't know. But when you bring up these topics and you share your opinions on things, people start to say, yo, you know what? You're right. The pandemic was handled really, really bad. Like our government has really, really failed us. You know what? Corporations really do have us by the throat. If it's not for us having these conversations, a lot of people will just accept the status quo and never actually think about if this is beneficial for the proletariat class, the working class, the everyday people, or if this is just a sham, if this is just a ploy, if this is just a God complex gone wrong, severely wrong. So that is my comment, or my my long ass commentary on your responses. Hopefully it resonates. I don't mean to be dismissive or come off as like pompous or anything, but like this is my true response and my true reaction on the particular points that you made. Let me know what you think, CC, and anybody else who stumbles upon this video. If it resonates, if it hits, definitely leave your comments down below. But yeah, no one's going to solve this but us. Like a lot of people, for example, the conservatives will say, oh, Tucker Carlson tells the truth. We love Tucker Carlson. Not knowing that, oh, by the way, Tucker Carlson is a trust fund baby. He is the heir to the Swanson brand. He's been rich. He's never been poor. He's on the side of the capitalist. But when he spews his stupid shit, you think he's on your side. He has your back. He understands you. Meanwhile, he's never had to eat ramen noodles. He's never known what it's like to go without. He's never had to worry about, oh, if I'm going to make rent this month. He's always had a silver spoon in his mouth, no different than Anderson Cooper on CNN. He comes from a family with an heir. He's from the Vanderbilt. Do you think he's ever had to struggle in his life? But somehow, some way, he is the voice of the working class? How does that work? Again, the left hand washes the right hand and they both wash each other. The corporations, the government, and the news publications are having a weird and twisted stank orgy, threesome, on the expense of the working class. And that's true shit.
If you made it this far in the video, thanks you for tuning in. These videos are very long, they're very nuanced, and as much as y'all may or may not enjoy this video, if you would like to see more content like this, very thorough, very fleshed out, I answer your questions, I talk about different topics that are very important to us that some people rather not discuss. Let me know by the way that you interface with this particular video. Like, comment, share. The more view counts that I see on this particular video, I know y'all are serious about it, and I'll put more intentionality to making these videos. Again, it's very long to record, edit, curate, and all that jazz. So I'll know y'all are serious about these type of videos by the way that you actually hit the view and share this video. So thanks again.
So y'all can like, share, comment, subscribe. Let me know what y'all think in the comments down below. And I shall see you in the next video. Peace.